In this video, I'm going to show you how to work up your data for the reaction stoichiometry lab. I've already typed some data in here. My reaction is nitric acid with barium hydroxide. For that particular reaction, the acid to base ratio is expected to be 2 to 1. So my expected optimum is at 2 here. I have 4 points where I have excess acid, and I have 4 points where I have excess base. This is going to make the mole acid to mole base ratio smaller than it would be for the optimum right here. So what I'm going to try to do here is make a graph, and I'm going to look for a sharp change in conductivity on the graph that is going to show me where the experimental optimum is. And what I want to do is compare my expected optimum at 2 with the actual place where I see a sharp change in conductivity on the graph. Okay, so let's think about what we're going to need to do here. One thing I might do is make a curve for the too much acid points and the expected optimum together, and then another curve with the too much base points and the expected optimum in that curve as well. So I want to set up two curves here. So I'm going to copy some of this data out so I've got it just all in one place. And I'm just labeling it here. And I'm going to just copy out this data right here. I'm going to say Control C to copy and then Control V to paste. And I've got the data for my first curve. Now my second curve is going to look like this. Too much base plus the optimum. And what I'm going to do is copy the optimum out and cut and paste it down here. And then I'm going to copy my too much base points out and cut and paste those down here. So now I have the data all set up for my two separate curves. And I'm going to make a little graph over here that's going to have those two curves in it. I'm going to click off of this, and I'm going to go up to Insert, Charts, and I'm going to always pick this first scatter plot. Now, you do not pick the line plot up here. You pick the scatter plot down here. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to put X and Y data into it. So I'm going to hit that, and let's put it over here. I'm going to scroll over a little bit if I can. Let's see. Let me shrink this a little bit so it fits. And there's my graph that I'm going to make, and I'm going to add some data to it. Now, if I go up to, I'm on the chart design part of the ribbon right now, and I can see select data there, and I'm going to select data to put into the chart. Okay, it gives me this little pop-up here, and I can add curves to it. So let's add the first curve. And what I'm going to do is, let's call this the too much acid side. And it has the optimum in there too. And okay, now I'm going to select the X points. So I'm going to hit this little button here, and I'm going to select the X for curve 1. All right, I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to select the Y for curve 1. And I'm going to go back, and it should have curve 1 in there for me. And I'm going to say OK. Now let's put curve 2 in there. Add. I'm going to call this curve too much base plus the optimum. I'm going to go put my X values in there. Let's move this out of the way. And then I'm going to go put my Y values in there. And I get the two curves on there. So I'm going to say OK at this point. Now, I don't like the way this looks. It's all jammed up on one side of the graph. It's good form to rescale your graph so that it fills the entire space you have to work with. So first of all, I'm going to do a quick layout on this so that I have room for my axis labels and axis title. And I go up to quick label. I'm on the chart design ribbon right here, and I always pick the first one. So I'm going to pick that one. I still don't like that everything is all jammed up on this side right here. I want it to be all spread out. I can rescale the axes here. So what I can do is click on this axis and then right click. I'm going to click my right mouse button on top of that. And I see Format Axis on the pop-up menu here. So I'm going to hit that. And notice that the axis has gone from 0 to 2.5. It'd be a little bit better if it went from, say, 1.5 to that. And if I click off of that, it spread it out a little more. I could have even gone a little bit more. I could have made the axis go, let's see, I want to do Format Axis again. And maybe I'll make it go 1.7. I'm just trying to get it to spread out a little more. See, now it goes from 1.7 up. All right. Now what I could do is fit a line here and a line here and see where they intersect. So what I'm going to do is get this out of the way. And I'm going to fit a line to this. I do that by clicking on those points. And notice it lit up where it's taken the data from. And I can right click on this. And I can say add a trend line. Now it adds a line that goes as close as possible to all of the points that I put in that curve at once. So it's a line that's going down this way. I want it to be linear, and I also want it to hit the other line. So what I might want to do is change this forecast a little bit and have it forecast back this way a little bit. That's going to just, when it says forecast, it's going to just extend the line down here. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that line there. So what I'm going to do is forecast back, maybe a tenth. See what that does. And I'm going to display the equation for that on the chart and the r-squared value too, so I can see how big it is. Now notice it messed up the axis scaling again on me. Let me put a line on the other one and then we'll fix that. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select the other points that I have. So I selected the orange points, they all lit up, and I am going to fit a line to those. I am going to, with them selected like this, I am going to click the right mouse button and I'm going to say add trend line. And the same thing again, it looks like I can see where it hits the blue line there. I could forecast it forward a little bit if I wanted to, say a tenth of a unit, and I wanted to display the equation on the chart and the r-squared value on the chart as well. So this is kind of all jammed up in here. I'd like to spread that out. What I could do is rescale my y-axis here. If I start the minimum value of the y-axis at 8 and go up to, say, 11, that should solve my pile-up problem that I have there. So I right click, I click on the y-axis, I right click on it to bring this pop-up menu here, and I'm going to pick Format Axis. And how about if I go, instead of from 0 to 12, I go from 8 to 11, and it'll look a little bit better. Yeah. So I can see everything here. And I can see where these two are intersecting right there, see? And if I dropped that, if I read off the x value for that point, that intersection, that would tell me exactly where the intersection was. It would tell me the experimental optimum mole ratio. So I'd like to have the x value for that intersection. And I could read it off very roughly that way. That's going to be just fine. And it'll read off around 2, which is pretty much what we expected it to be for this reaction. I could be a little bit fancier and I could solve these two equations, trendline equations, simultaneously for x, because I want the x value of the intersection there, and the y value is the same for both of those curves too. So if I solve an equation that looks like 7.0028x minus 5.0075 equals minus 6.5869x plus 21.976, that equation solved for x will give me the exact value of where the lines are intersecting there. It'll give me the experimental optimum. I can just eyeball it and see that it's 2, which is good enough for our experiment right here. But if I did want a more exact estimate off of the graph, I could get it like that. Now all we got to do is let's clean up this graph a little bit. Let's drag it over here so we can see it a little bit better. We're going to put a chart title on here. Remember, the title should tell someone why they're looking at this graph. What are they getting out of this? What is the important point of this graph? We're trying to get the optimum mole ratio for the reaction of HNO3 with barium hydroxide in this case. You'll put your acid and your base in there. And you could say this different ways, but we want to keep this short. I could go ahead and put subscripts in there if I wanted to, but not really necessary. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to label the x-axis. That's going to be, for me, moles of HNO3 per mole of barium hydroxide. You put your acid and your base there. And here I'm going to put conductivity in millisiemens. Okay, and there, that graph is acceptable. This graph will give me what I want. I can look at where the intersection is right there, drop it down to the x-axis. That tells me what the experimental optimum mole ratio is. So I'm going to make sure I have this graph selected. You'll see the little circles all around the edge right here. And now I can print it. And I'm going to print the graph as a PDF file. I go up to File, Print, and I'm going to change my printer to Microsoft Print to PDF, this one right here. And notice because I selected the graph, it's showing me just the graph and not all the other stuff I had on the spreadsheet. And I'm going to hit the print button. It's going to ask me where I want to put that. So it's wanting to put it in my downloads directory. I'm going to just remember where I put it, okay? And I'm going to say reaction stoichiometry graph. And it's always a good idea when you're uploading these to Canvas to put your name in there. So I'm going to call myself F. Sinise, and it's going to make a PDF out of this. And now I can upload that PDF file, if I remember where I put it, to Canvas alongside of the PDF for my report form. Got any questions on this? Let me know.